But I try to get people into a 5 year, which is a big stretch. A lot of people, which was really wild to me when I started working with others in my program, is that most people don't look beyond the end of the month in a lot of cases. And that might even be a stretch, you know?
Today, we have Massimo Rigotti with us. He is a speaker, an addiction recovery advocate, and he's the author of Flavors of Confidence, the Sober Method. Massimo, could you please introduce yourself? Let people know just a little more about you, please.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Ed. It's always great to get out in front of people and let them know more about what I'm doing. So, a little quick background on myself. I was born in the middle of the country in Lincoln, Nebraska, and had quite an adventurous life that took me throughout this country. And along the way, I managed to get myself tremendously addicted to alcohol and cocaine. And it eventually took me down with it in a spectacular crash that left me homeless for 16 months living on the street. And going from the pinnacle of success to living on the street will really wake you up with where you are and who you are. And it'll also show you what you're made of. And when I stood up sober, I recognized that things weren't exactly how I wanted them to be. And there had to be more than just life of sobriety. What else was out there? You know, I had to find that next calling. And instead of looking in the rearview mirror, like so many people do in this circumstance, I decided that I was going to put it 100% behind me and look forward. And I created my own method, which I called Flavors of Confidence, which is about building up yourself and reframe your life so that you're confident in how you exist and move within your own daily life. If you have a sense of confidence and a sense of worth, your life takes on a whole new meaning and purpose, and it is transformative in its way that it impacts others around you, and your success breeds success around you, and it's just an uplifting experience. Now, in all of this, I was working with someone who I had met randomly on a beach, and we came together. Her name was Samantha Thomas, and she was unfortunately tragically murdered by a drunk driver in August of 2020. She'd been encouraging me to share what I was doing, but I just kind of sloughed it off and said, I'll get around to it someday. But when that happened, it totally changed my purpose in life. And I wrote the book and I start advocating the sober method and the tools that I had created for myself, I now share with everyone. So that's a little bit about me and how I got here and why I do what I do.
I think it's amazing. Most of us, it takes tragedy to wake us up. And it's so alarming when you are filled with addictive behaviors, as any of us, recovering addicts know. You have this personality. I was there at 9 years old, and I started walking that. Yes, it's amazing. And my uncle got me into Alateen at about 13 years old. And it was amazing. I still, went my own way, did my own thing. It was part of growing up. But it's alarming how many people are addicted to substances. What was the most devastating part of your awakening period?
I think the most challenging thing for me to work through was just the large wake of destruction I had left behind me and not realized just how many lives I touched in a negative way. I I was successful. I guess a lot of people classify this as a functioning alcoholic. So there are many people that maybe knew I drank a little bit, but they didn't actually recognize or realize the fact that I was a true addict, not only to alcohol, but to drugs. And so I masked it pretty well because it was succeed at all costs, get out of my way, I'm going to destroy you. That was my kind of attitude in life. And after I was completely humbled by beginning to forage for food and not have a roof over my head, I began to look at life in an entirely different way and recognize, wow, I did a lot of bad things. Not really in a sense, I didn't really think that I had really hurt anyone. I didn't, physically harm anyone, but I said a lot of things and I did a lot of things that I could have done better. And that was troubling to me. That was probably the most troubling thing in my overall awakening, was realizing that I had to go back and fix a lot of, put right what I once put wrong, so to speak.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's that guilt syndrome that we deal with, and fixing that, that trash in our life, that's a big part of recovery. Because even if you're going to AA and you're trying to do the program, uh, I witnessed so many alcoholics, and I was part of it. We'd go to a meeting, and then after the meeting, we'd meet at the bar and have a drink and talk about what we discussed. So waking up and owning yourself is a big part of this journey. And it's about fixing that negative self behavior, really. And that's owning up to your behaviors, being truthful with yourself, and not only owning up to it, but walking the truth into your life. That's hard to do. So talk about the process with us.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up something that happened in your AA meetings, because it's something that happened in mine as well. And that was troubling for me. Like, we walk out into the parking lot and then suddenly it's like, you guys want to go get a drink? I'm like, whoa, wait a second. This is completely against what I just sat through. Um, yeah. So, the heart, I think part of the problem is that in the traditional group setting like this, is that we look in the rearview mirror, and so we tend to have this sort of wallowing in the past. This happened to me, this happened to me. Well, you start talking about those things all the time, and I tell you what, in AA meetings I start like, man, that was kind of fun, I remember when that happened. Man, and you don't want that. I mean, so this is we also have another challenge here, and then I'll answer your question. Is that the challenge that we have is that in this particular small subset of mental health recovery, we are self affirming a negative. We stand up in meetings and we say that we're an alcoholic, where I'm a drug addict, I'm this, I'm that. We don't do that in any other area of mental health. We always talk about the strength that we are. I am better than this. I am greater than this. I am not going to let this stand in my way. Why are we doing the opposite in something that is so powerful like addiction? So I always encourage, and I don't even answer a question like, are you an alcoholic? I say no, because I'm not. I haven't had a drink in 9 years. So I don't see myself as that. I see myself as something greater than that. And that's ultimately what the sober method teaches. So the step one of sober method, and sober stands for stoic, observe, behavior, execute, and restore. And it is a continuous improvement plan that works on your life and your mind in a holistic way. So the beginning step is stoicism. So we're talking about taking a deep reflective look at yourself. And in doing that, you're forced to look at some of the hard truths about yourself to understand why you're doing the things that you're doing and what is truly important to you. And so the process starts off by looking at one fundamental thing. I always recommend Meditations by Marcus Aurelius as a good starting point, mainly because the barrier of entry of getting a copy is $0. So I don't have anyone saying, well, how much is that going to cost me? I mean, like, if you really want, you could just Google Marcus Aurelius quotes, and that'd be a good start for you on the internet, right? And so Marcus Aurelius is a really interesting character when you think about it. Is literally the most powerful man on earth 2,000 years ago, looking at himself in his own journal in a very personal way and realizing his own shortcomings. And most people with that amount of power would never think, I am not good enough to do this. I'm struggling with this. Most instead say, I'm the greatest person alive. Nobody is better than me. And so that's very telling. And if he could do that, then we all can do that. Because certainly most of us are not the most powerful person alive, right? So as you look and reflect on a specific item that Marcus Aurelius has like pointed out in his own life, like thinking that something is beneath you, and you might look at your own life. It's like, did I ever think that something was beneath my station? Okay, I can think of 3 or 4 things. Why did I think that? And then dig into your own mind. What created that belief in your mind? Oh, well, this happened to me when I was 4 and my dad did this to me. So then I thought from that point forward that this was the right thing. And you recognize, oh, wait a second, that's connected to this other thought that then later I did this, which caused me to start treating my friends in this way. And then I realized that I was hurting them. And then I started drinking because I felt bad about that. Oh, wow. I just discovered why I have a trigger. I just discovered a trigger just by going down this road of self-reflection. And it's very powerful because we're layered. We are so layered, and we forget that everything that we do from the time that we're very small is just laying down a framework that we operate within. Because we're all, lots of people say, oh, humans are lazy. I don't necessarily like calling us lazy. I see humans as optimized for the least amount of power, consumption. We want to do, it's not that we're really lazy. We want to have a reserve power source, right? So your brain just goes, I don't need to work on this. This worked last time, just do it again. And so when you frame up something that is negative and you lay down these things on top of each other years after years after years, that's why it becomes so difficult to tear the house down and rebuild yourself. That's what this allows you to do, though, because then you look at that one thing, and I'm talking, that's just like one minor little thing that I pointed out right there. Okay, so now I move forward, and how does that impact me in my daily life? That's the observe step. So it's like, well, okay, that impacts me in these different ways. What would happen if I would change that behavior just a little bit? And this is like kind of playing it out in your mind, like and testing it and what that might look like. Then you actually, remap that behavior in the behavior step and play it out. Maybe role play it if you have that ability. And then you go and you test. That's execute. So, okay, we're going to do this differently this time. And when you have that ability to test and say, oh, that worked. Oh my goodness. Not only was I able to figure out something that had troubled me my entire life, I also have now changed my behavior and I got a different outcome. Wow. And so you have this positive affirmation that what you discovered about yourself and changed about yourself in near real time is going to have a positive impact on your life. And then if it doesn't work, though, then you go back to the observe step and go like, okay, well, that kind of worked, but it didn't work. And so you kind of like, fiddle around in the kitchen and make a better omelet. And then you come out eventually in the restoration step where you reflect back and you think, who did I negatively impact with this behavior in my life? And this is your typical in a 12-step program where you'd be like, going back and looking and getting the forgiveness and so on and so forth. And this is making amends basically. And then you start over, go back to Stoicism, look for something else about yourself, reflect, and it's really wild. I'm on my 129th pass at this exact moment through my own system, and it's really great because each time I go back to the beginning, it's like I feel like I'm getting into smaller and smaller perfection improvement of myself. I don't even really recognize the person I was a decade ago now. In reading what I wrote in my journals a decade ago, I'm like, who was this person? It's really wild and it's really cool.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting because that same type of system is true recovery process from all of those mental and physical barriers that we all face. So, you know, I'm in my 59th year of life. I'm looking at that big 60 mark now, and I'm really saying to myself, you're just now starting to feel what life is about because of the process that you just outlined for us. You know, you've got to go back and seek each of those disgusting moments in your life and discover what made you do that and how did you get through it. You know, it's a miracle that we get through some of the things that we go through. I found myself, you know, as a teenager, waking up in people's closets. I went to parties and don't even know where I am. And here I am, middle of the night, waking up from passing out in these people's bathroom closet. And how do I get out of here? And, you know, those odd feelings that we put ourselves through is part of learned behavior. And this subconscious mind that we talk about, we really have to dig in, like you just explained, to figure out all of that, why we do the dirty things that we do. And then that's part of the reflection, but you tout that you always want to look forward, and part of looking forward is making a proper plan so we don't have this piss poor performance. The 7P principle, my cousin calls it. He told me proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And I really look at that now and I say, wow, that's part of life I never really experienced proper planning. and and it's true, if we plan properly and we forget about all of the things that we want and focus on our actual needs, our life goes a lot better. What is your take on that, Massimo?
I I love it, and one of the things that is actually in the execute step of the sober method is looking ahead and creating a plan that you're actually following. And I personally do it just a little bit differently because I tend to be a very long term thinker. Um, so I have like 20-year goals set, but I try to get people into a 5 year, which is a big stretch. A lot of people, which was really wild to me when I started working with others in my program, is that most people don't look beyond the end of the month in a lot of cases. And that might even be a stretch. You know, they're like, oh, well, I don't even know what I'm going to do on Friday. I'm like, it's Wednesday. So that was awakening for me. So I encourage people to look initially 2 years out. Where do you want to be in 2 years? Okay, now let's divide that out. Think about that in sections. In order to get to that goal, what would be a logical, I have to be here at the end of this year? And then you're like, okay, that's your 1 year goal. Okay, how would I get there? I got to divide that in half. And I like do this whole divide in half thing until you're down to this is what you have to get done this week. Oh, okay. And then you frame up your life into a big, long series of small, measurable steps that are going to get you there. It's kind of like looking at a 1% improvement plan, except you're doing it with your own life. You're like, okay, I have to take these steps this week. If I complete those, then I'm going to stay on goal. The other thing that is really challenging with those that come, I think for most anybody, but especially those with addiction and in recovery, is giving yourself a little bit of grace. You may not make every goal that you set out to have done by the end of the month. Well, that's okay. It's a little bit of a setback. How are you going to course correct and adjust so you can still make the 6 month mark? And understanding that things happen and be okay with that. I think oftentimes those of us that have gone through addiction recovery is that we get we get really down on ourselves if any little thing just like it can just like knock the house of cards out from under us, and then suddenly we're not able to and that is something that is we really comes from the strength within the sober method, and that's why I really like it, because you're focusing so deep within yourself and really reframing your mind, that as your mind strengthens up, you realize that the little these things that used to be huge that would be completely ruin your day. I mean, I mean, they seem so minute because what you if you are on path and you're on target and you have good planning, you know what your goal is, then all the little things around you that used to seem huge are nothing. They just fall away because you stay focused on that goal. And if you're working towards that, it makes life in general much more easy. I think that we spend so much of our time kind of going in 30 different directions and wondering why we don't get anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I tell my wife when I die, put "don't worry about it" on my headstone. And I really think when you figure that out, all of that garbage goes away. And, it goes into that keep it simple, stupid, and one day at a time, one step at a time. And that is the key to a healthy lifestyle. And it's hard for addicts to put that mindset into place. It takes years. I've watched thousands of addicts and drunks just become nothing and die because of cirrhosis of the liver and all of that, because they don't want to step into that hard place of that shame and guilt of what we've done in the past. And it really keeps my mind focused more on what I'm doing here today with you, you know, bettering myself and letting people know that's watching or listening to us today. It's okay. Just keep it simple. And we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. So Wh- it's kind of like the Lord's Prayer, you can only do so much, and focus on what you can do and let the other go. It's really part of a good balanced approach to life. Talk to us about your book and tell people how they can get the book when it's done. It's a process to write a book. What got you into the mindset of, hey, I need to put this into a book, and this is how I'm going to do it?
You aren't lying. I think that I think writing that my first book was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It is tough. It is very tough. So my first book is Flavors of Confidence: A Reflection for Those in Need, and that book is my life story. It is a reflection on my life, how I began, and my trials, tribulations, my wild ride to success, my hard fall to homelessness, and then the dramatic rise back to honestly being in better shape in all aspects of my life than I ever was before. And that's an amazing thing right there. That was tough. And the reason that it was really tough to write this, well, one, the motivation to begin writing this was the tragic murder of someone who was, my rock and the closest person to me. And so losing Samantha, being the catalyst for writing this book, made it so it made it much more emotional than it probably would have been otherwise. Yet the exercise was tremendously cathartic because I'd always been a very private person. I didn't really want people to know the inner workings of what was going on inside my head and how I had achieved things that I had achieved. I didn't really feel like it was anyone's business. It's just that's my private life, and you don't need to know anything. So this was tough. I had to open myself up in ways that I was even brought up to, like, you don't tell people things about yourself. I don't know what type of family you were, but maybe it's also generational. But that's the generation that I was in. It's like, yeah, you just don't do that. And I'm 10 years behind you, so I'm 49, up for the big 50 this year. So it's a milestone birthday is ahead of me. Yeah, exactly. Um, and and so at the end of this book, I wrap it up with what I was doing at the time, and this was like a 10-step method, and it was just what I had been sharing with people that I saw at AA, and it wasn't very refined. It was what I was doing personally. Um, Yet releasing the book almost immediately showed me, and the book came out 2 years ago, March of 23. And almost immediately I was getting feedback. And as I started working with people that were trying to use it, that it was clunky. What step am I on? What am I supposed to do after this? It just didn't really work well in a larger scenario. And so I went back to the drawing board and I thought, okay, how can I make this easier and maybe meld it into something? And I was like, and what would I call it? I mean, Flavors of Confidence is kind of clunky, as well. So I thought maybe it's the sober method. And I'm like, well, surely that's taken by somebody. There's no way that can be available in 2023. But sure enough, it was. So I latched onto it right away. Yeah, so what do you use to get sober? The sober method. It totally makes sense, right? Uh, and so what I did then is I took my original 10 steps and I like rolled in a couple steps into one. Like one of the steps, the behavior step, was always just the behavior step. It used to be step 6, and now it's like step 3. So, but it made it much easier. And then I went back to the drawing board, and it wasn't that much longer. So in end of October of 23, I came out with the Sober Method book. And that's when I really began working specifically to help others understand that there are alternatives to AA. And I think that is so important. Not everything works for everyone. And when you have, you're being told that, oh, this is the best thing. Okay. And it's the most accepted thing. So everybody goes to NA or AA believing this is the path. And if it doesn't work, well, I tried everything. That makes it so I just so dislike when I hear that. And that's why I also encourage other ways to get sober that aren't my own method, because I recognize that, hey, this might not be the best for you. But the most important thing to me is that you find yourself and your sobriety, because you're going to be the best possible person when you do. So,
Yeah, I like that a lot. Uh, when we discover ourselves, we're just this infinitely stronger person, and we can devour the world and move mountains in ways we never thought possible. And I'm still learning new things, new ways to evolve into something better than what I am now. And that's really what it's about, is evolving and keep that evolution happening. We're this creature of habit, but we need to be forever learners. and really that means read a book and get off of I love YouTube and it's very informative, but and I hate reading books, but we specifically set time that is intentional for reading now, and it is increasingly making me a better person because I understand the world around me better. And I really want to encourage the watchers and the listeners today to, read a book. Start with the sober method because you're obviously here because you want to hear something about recovery. And I think that's very important. We find ourselves in that group mentality when we go to AA meetings. Like I said before, in the parking lot, we're going to the bar next. And when we put ourselves in a environment of woe's me, I'm a drunk, and yeah, it can be very depressive. And in the wrong mindset, you're going to just stay right there in that constant loop. And that's what we're trying to break, is that loop, that cycle, that addictive behavior. So yeah, I really encourage people read a book and find as many methods. Whatever works for you is the best way.
Yeah, and I tell you, I love what you said just now about being a lifelong learner. That nothing will keep you more youthful than curiosity. And when you don't know something or you see something that's even remotely interesting to you, ask. You know, the most amazing things and experiences in my life have been when I saw or noticed somebody doing something and I walked up to them and like, that's really cool. How does this work? And anybody who's doing their job, oh, they love that. They love telling you what they do. Mainly because, and I jokingly say this often, mainly because when they go home at night, the last thing their wife wants to hear is how work went. So they're more than happy to tell you about whatever they're doing, right? Uh, so I mean, like, take advantage of that because then it might spark something else. You're like, in that explanation, you might learn something about something else, and you're like, ooh, I wonder how that came to be. And then you can go down and search that out. And there's an infinite amount of things that you don't know. And I am in a constant quest to learn what I don't know. And I can spend the rest of my life and I won't even get close to understanding most everything, you know? And so that is it. Yes, yes, that's totally okay. The other thing that this does for you, especially if you're struggling with addiction, it gives you a new addiction. You can be addicted to learning. I mean,
Yeah, that's right. That's so true. Shift the behavior.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't think that we ever truly lose that portion of who we are as addicts. I don't think it ever truly goes away. We channel it in different ways in order to take care of that need within our own mind. Those that have addiction and struggle with addiction, that there are underlying things going on in your head that are never going to change. But you learn to reroute these into productive things. One might argue that I'm addicted to going through the sober method time after time, or that I'm addicted to learning, or that like those are all aspects of utilizing what I really believe is a superpower. If you look at your addictive nature as something that you can harness as think of the drive that you might undertake in order to remain addicted to something. I think about all the crazy things that I did in order to just get that next drink, like, oh, I know how I can make some money really fast. I mean, like, that's creativity. I mean, like, so if you can channel those things into something productive, imagine what you can do. It's endless. It's great.
That's right. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. So, Massimo, is there anything that we've missed that you want to add to our conversation today?
I just would really like to add that there's no reason to be discouraged with where you are in your process of recovery. That if you're taking the smallest step to recognize that you need to do something and you fall down 50 times trying to stand up sober, that's totally okay. I I, I did the same thing. I went through three really bad I got it, I'm standing up, and then completely fell down and destroyed what I had rebuilt in just a short number of weeks. It's okay because I'm okay now. And the fact that you continue the drive, that's the most important thing. Take those small measurable steps to bettering yourself until one day you're on the other side of it and you'll begin to wonder, how was I ever allowing this in my life? How was I ever allowing myself to not see clearly and see the world in a way that is so much more beautiful and so much more rewarding to experience life without it clouded by substances. It really is. I don't know that you ever really truly recognize that until you get several years sober, and then you start seeing things that you realize, like you experienced something that you did when you had been drunk or high, and you're like, wow, this would have been amazing. And it really is so cool because it affirms that, you know what, the hard work that I've been doing, it's worth it, and that's your reward. And don't give up on yourself. Anything that you believe is possible in life is possible with enough hard work and effort. And it doesn't have to be like full out. It just needs to be a tiny bit of effort every single day, because consistency will beat the hardest worker every day. That's why the tortoise and the hare story exists. We always think about that as being like some sort of speed story, running fast, and it doesn't really have anything to do with that. If you really break it down, the tortoise and hare story is just about getting up and doing the bare minimum every day without ever not doing it, as opposed to the hare, like running really fast and then like, having fun for 5 6 days, and then the hare, falls behind again. And you don't want to be the hare. You want to be the tortoise that just like slowly moves and slowly gets better until one day you look back and like, wow, I beat this. I won the race.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And a lot of it has to do with that mindset. Where are you in your life? Who are you around? And there's this thing called the crab in the bucket syndrome. Are you around people that want you where they are? Uh, Take a shot right now in your life and figure out, am I doing this for me, or because I have to be here because of them? We're all stuck in the bucket, and it is okay to get out. I've had a great time speaking with you today, and I would really like to do this again with you at some point. Could you let people know how to get a hold of you and work with you?
Absolutely. So, anyone that is interested in what I do, check out sobermethod.com or at sobermethod on all of the socials. I post daily content. If you go to sobermethod.com, you can connect with me. Also, my own website, massimorigotti.com, as well, if you're interested in any private coaching, which I happily do and enjoy. That's probably the most rewarding thing that I do at the moment. So, thank you, Ed, so much for your time. I really enjoyed it, and I would love to do a deeper dive into some subsections of what we talked about today. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on your podcast and speak to your listeners.
Massimo, it's been a great, fantastic journey with you today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this podcast enlightening, entertaining, educational in any way, please share, like, subscribe, and join us right back here next week for another great episode of the Dead America Podcast. I'm Ed Waters, your host. Enjoy your afternoon, wherever you might be.